so grateful to have you here joining us. Please welcome.
Good morning. Good Sunday morning, I have to say, and I'm really impressed. I was doubtful I would find anybody awake this morning, but this is a testament of the energy in this conference. So the executives and delegates, young workers, friends, it is certainly an honor to be with you today. And bear with me, I am shaky a bit, because I am a first-time delegate and a first-time speaker. It is always a pleasure to speak to union delegates with whom Palestine has a long and noble history, and indeed the youth. You, after all, are the ones who will carry all this work forward while dealing with all the many mistakes the older generations have left for you to clear up. I count among these the catastrophic failure to finally address the grave injustice the Palestinian people, my people, have suffered over the past more than 100 years. But before I get there, allow me to thank the TUC, Paul Nowak, Alice, Eric Wright, Kodaisa Batul, and the team here at the TUC and the TUC Young Workers for extending the invitation to be with you in this TUC Young Workers Conference. I spoke only recently at the main TUC conference and was so inspired by the energy and warmth I encountered there. And as I say, it is with British unions that the movement for justice in Palestine really first started those many, many years ago, particularly in Dundee, 43 years ago, and from there all over the UK. I did not hear the applaud for Dundee. We love Scotland, I have to say. So thank you for your solidarity. It is invaluable. And I hear of the PCS Young Members Delegation Motion 26 that calls for the immediate restoration of funding to UNRWA, the biggest UN organization for refugees. I hear of the motion to support fully the Palestine Solidarity Campaign and the solidarity movement going and growing all over the UK. So I commend the PCSC and your motion and the continued solidarity with the people of Palestine. It is especially invaluable these days as we see that Israel turns its genocidal violence in Gaza, breach a ceasefire agreement it had signed, and yet again prevent the delivery of humanitarian aid to 2.3 million people. There are only so many times, my friends, there are only so many times a person can spell out the absolutely obvious before getting tired. There are only so many times that you can stomach some officials, Western officials, politicians, and leaders struggling to clearly and unequivocally call out a blockade on food, water, medicine, electricity, and fuel to an entire population for what it is, a war crime. Not only it is a perfect example of the illegal practice of collective punishment. Collective punishment. It was followed by a clear admission by Israel's war minister only a few days ago that this is exactly what was intended. He warned the Palestinians in Gaza, the Palestinian people in Gaza would suffer total destruction. Clear intent and execution of collective punishment. But apparently this is too complicated for many politicians. Apparently the expressed intent and the clear execution and reality still does not register with many. Why is that? Why is that? How are we so dehumanized that it barely registers that in a single series of bombardment, Israel killed over 170 children on Tuesday alone, this last Tuesday. On the top of 18,000 children killed in Gaza by Israeli bombardment over the preceding 16 months. How are we so dehumanized? How are we so dehumanized that Israel blows up the only cancer specialist hospital in Gaza in the same day in a controlled demolition, and it passes almost without comment? What is so hard to understand about 17 months of outsized violence that has claimed more than 61,000 lives, mostly women and children, that has destroyed everything in the Gaza Strip, from homes to hospitals, from universities and schools to agricultural land and water infrastructure? What is so hard to understand when Israel, with planes and tanks and drones and helicopters, bombs refugee camps and hospitals in the occupied West Bank? Only the last few weeks displacing more than 40,000 Palestinians, not in Gaza, in Jenin and Tulkarem. I have just returned from the West Bank and I've seen these atrocities. And it is done by a state that has been quite transparent about its intention to depopulate Gaza of its people and to annex the occupied West Bank, where its illegal settlements are spreading freely and its illegal settlers are rampaging without restraint, terrorizing, and I've seen it with my eyes only a couple of weeks ago, terrorizing towns and villages while protected by an apartheid system of control that grants the settlers, the illegal colonial settlers, rights that are denied to the native people, to the native population. Almost 900 road blockades, checkpoints, all over the West Bank, that has turned our cities and towns and villages literally into disconnected, cantons, camps, ghettos. And here's the question, my friends. Not to the youth, because I know you are aware, but to your parents and grandparents. Are we invisible? Again, are we invisible? Are we still just as we were in 1917, the 1917 British Balfour Declaration that has declared us merely the non-Jewish community, when at the time Palestinian Christians and Muslims made up 95% of the population? Register that. Remember that. That moment of colonial arrogance. But we were turned into just non-Jewish minorities. When we, in fact, were 95%. Are we to be chased out? Like 2/3 of us were chased out in the Nakba events of 1948 because somehow we are not quite equal humans to stay in our homes and on our land. Do we have to continue to live under military occupation as we have since 1967? Under martial law? Is it impossible for me to understand how some governments, including the UK, who claim rule of law and respect for human rights, are still supporting this? I really gaze at my screen sometimes when I hear very senior politicians in this country and beyond saying that Israel is an ally, saying that we have shared values with Israel. What are these values? What are these values that you share with Israel? The values of genocide, of ethnic cleansing, of supremacy, of discrimination and racism, of incitement? What is it? What are these values they keep talking about? Or is it really primarily the dehumanization, the deep racism still going on since the colonial era? That we, the Palestinian people, have been othered. And let me say this, my friend. Genocide is not an issue. It's a war crime. Genocide is not just an issue. It's a genocide. It is a war crime and a crime against humanity. Ethnic cleansing is not an issue. It's a war crime and a crime against humanity. Our entire post-World War II global order was established to prevent genocide. Never again. But never again should be never again for all, not the few. But I also am here with you, the young leaders, the leaders of tomorrow and the future, and you give me so much inspiration to tell you about also who we are as a nation, as a people, to tell you about our rich history that goes back millennia. We are not just victims. We are a people rooted, cultured. Palestine is the birthplace of Christianity, the birthplace of almost every civilization, the crossroad, the cradle of civilizations, the hub between East and West. That we, the Palestinian people, are deeply rooted to our land and enormously proud as a nation of our heritage, our culture. Now our culture and heritage has become a global. I see many kufiyas here, by the way, and I really applaud you for making Palestinian culture and heritage such a global symbol for freedom, for justice. And that culture, that heritage is so rich and varied, so tolerant, and beautiful. My people are beautiful, my friends. They're beautiful. In out. They're good looking as well, by the way. And good food. And good music and good fun. So much good fun. Come visit. Gaza is gorgeous. Beautiful. Belongs to its people. To the Palestinian people. But so is the West Bank, so is Jerusalem, so is Bethlehem, so is the history. That we are the Palestinian people are a young and very educated population. You know, we have one of the lowest illiteracy rates in the world. And we have the highest PhD per capita graduates worldwide. with great drive and ambition, who work hard, and that despite everything comprises our people, consist of NASA technicians. Remember the rover thing that lands on Mars? That was a Palestinian from Gaza who sat next to me in primary school. I couldn't believe that I called him and said, "Is it you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You didn't look it back then." Inventors, Oscar Academy winners, writers, academics, business people, poets, engineers, freedom fighters, and some of the best trauma surgeons anywhere, including in this country. The last time I counted, we have 550 Palestinian consultants in the NHS. So proud I am as an ambassador. Saving lives here in this country every single morning and every single evening. That, by the way, if you don't understand us as a people with a history and a fundamental attachment to this land of Palestine, you will never understand the situation. Our attachment, who we are, our identity, our pride, our love to one another, the strength of our community, the strength of our mothers, my God. We need to understand that. This is not just a situation. So my friends, the situation is not complicated. It is not hard to resolve. In fact, in my opinion, it's the least complicated issue among so many other international issues. All we ask is that we are treated fairly. Fair play. We have certain basic, natural rights. All of them have been denied us for too long. As we say in Arabic, khalas, which means enough. We have the right to self-determination. Our refugees have the right to return to their homes. Is that too complicated? And we have the right to be treated equally under law, wherever we are. And if all international actors, the UK government included, should be so minded, there are clear and immediate steps they should take. Number one, impose sanctions. Impose sanctions, not only on individual settlers, but on the entire settlement regime and the state that sponsors it. Number two, impose a comprehensive arms embargo, not a partial one, a comprehensive arms embargo. You cannot, my friends, you cannot be half committed to law. You can't. You cannot be half committed to legality. You are either committed to law or you're not. There's nothing in between. Third, recognize the state of Palestine. And let me say this, my friends, recognition is not a gift or a favor. Self-determination is a fundamental right of the Palestinian people. Number four, and lastly, uphold, enforce the ICC arrest warrants against war criminals. Accountability is a major tenet of our international order, not only because victims deserve justice, but because we want to deter the next war criminals. We want to make sure that this never ever happens again. War criminals' place is not in New York or London. It's not standing on the United Nations podium shredding, literally shredding the UN Charter. War criminals' place is in The Hague, behind bars, for the rest of their lives. These are measures, my friends, that will make a difference. Politely asking Israel to please stop its genocide, or expecting Israel to investigate itself. I mean, every morning we call on Israel to investigate. Are you serious? Are you kidding me? Have you ever seen a war criminal investigate their own crimes and then come out and say, oops, I'm sorry, we were war criminals? And what is this? What is this? Why did we create these international institutions? Why do we have the ICJ and the ICC? Why do you insist on double standards? Why do you insist to keep placing Israel above every rule, above the law? What is this exceptionalism? And compare some Western reaction, terminology, interaction with Ukraine and Gaza. Compare. When a hospital in Ukraine is bombed, what happens? With 6 killed. And of course, all of us should be in uproar. But when a hospital in Gaza is bombed and 500 people are instantly killed, passes. Immediately short after the Ukrainian situation, the whole West was up in arms to push the ICC and the ICJ against Russia. But until now, we hear words like, the ICC is not the place for. What is the place then? Where should we go? Where should we seek justice? Why did we establish these judicial institutions? So, let me say this, my friends. Law must be implemented and imposed if so necessary. Only last July, the International Court of Justice, that's the world's court, came up with a ruling, an advisory opinion, that Israel's presence in the Palestinian occupied territory is unlawful, that all of its settlement, expansion, and building is unlawful and must be dismantled, including in East Jerusalem, and that all third-party states, like the UK, should cease immediately any political, legal, or material support to this illegality. Is that very difficult to follow? And this is, by the way, also the British domestic law. So, law must be implemented and imposed if so necessary, and it is necessary. And every day we lose means more bloodshed. So, we must exert what pressure we can on all governments, including the British government, to stand on the right side of history. And we truly and deeply appreciate, we do appreciate the TUC's support for us, the trade union of this country's support for us, the solidarity, the passion, the energy that we see in all trade unions. We appreciate it. And I often say that you are the backbone of the solidarity movement here. We appreciate you walking with us the long walk to freedom, quoting Nelson Mandela, who also said, by the way, Nelson Mandela said, South Africa's freedom is incomplete until Palestinians are free. This is solidarity. When you understand that freedom is a human thing, belongs to all of us, as Nelson Mandela did. When you understand, as Martin Luther King did, that injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere, then you know what is the true meaning of solidarity. And I tell you, the youth movement of the trade unions know exactly the meaning of that, solidarity. And I'll conclude by saying this, my friends, that rarely can there have been a more pressing moral imperative to act quickly and with determination. Act quickly and with determination to prevent genocide, to achieve peace and justice. But I have something to assure you of, to promise you, on behalf of my people, the people of Palestine. Number one, we will not give up. We will keep the fight and the struggle. Number two, we are not leaving our homeland whatsoever under any circumstances. Number three, Gaza, where I was born and lived most of my life, will be rebuilt. And guess what? Every time we rebuild it, we rebuild more schools, more hospitals, more homes. I never say we will build it more beautiful, because Gaza is so gorgeous and beautiful. We will build it as it was, beautiful, resilient, but with more lives and more livelihoods. And Gaza will be reunited with the West Bank, because that will be our final push, our last mile to liberation, to freedom, to an independent state of Palestine. And I know you stand with us, my friends. I do know that. And I know millions upon millions do stand with us. I've seen the streets of London, streets of Manchester. I've seen Scotland and Wales. I've seen Northern Ireland. I've seen everywhere in the UK and all over the world. I've seen the student encampments here in the UK, in the US. You've seen the students. This happens in a generation's time. The movement is real. It's happening. It's sustainable. And with so much passion, so much commitment and devotion by the students. And you've seen what is happening in the US of late for some of the leaders of the students. But nonetheless, this gives us so much hope. You know, the last encampments was during the anti-Vietnam War. So it's historic what is happening for Palestine. So we applaud and we salute the youth and the students who are taking it on their own, on their shoulders, to actually walk with us, continue walking with us. This is the biggest global solidarity campaign I can recall, at least since the anti-apartheid movement of the 80s. And like the anti-apartheid movement of the 80s, this too will grow and grow until we are irresistible, until we are unstoppable. Stand with us all the way to a free Palestine. Thank you.